You know what's crazy? I just spent $226 at the grocery store and walked out with chicken, vegetables, and basics. That's it. No luxury food, just enough to feed my family. And this isn't just me. Scroll social media for 5 minutes and you'll see it everywhere. People stunned by receipts, parents doing math in the aisles, families choosing between groceries and the electric bill. Something is broken. And it gets worse. In one US city, people are paying for groceries in 4 monthly payments. In another, meat and cheese are locked behind glass, and you have to ask just to buy chicken. And in one of the richest cities in the country, 2 people can pay different prices for the same milk based on data tracking. This isn't the future. It's happening right now. In this video, we're breaking down 10 American cities already facing a food crisis and what they're showing us about where the rest of the country could be headed. So the question is, are you going to ignore these stories or understand what's coming before it reaches your city? Let's start with number 10, something that genuinely stopped me cold. Number 10, Chicago, buying groceries on credit. Picture this, you're standing in line at your local grocery store in Chicago. This is a working-class city, the kind of place where people take pride in honest work and living within their means. But something disturbing has started happening in Chicago grocery stores, something that should scare all of us. BNPL, buy now, pay later. You've probably seen it online. Those apps that let you split purchases into 4 easy payments. Seems harmless for buying a TV or sneakers, right? But here's where it gets uncomfortable. In Chicago, people are using BNPL to buy food. Stop and think about that. Families are splitting their grocery bills into payments, paying for this week's food over the next 4 weeks. That's not financial flexibility. That's a crisis dressed up as convenience. When you have to finance your groceries like you're buying a car, something's gone terribly wrong. And you can hear it in conversations around the city. It's just temporary. We'll figure it out next month. It's fine, I'll pay later. It sounds casual, like it's no big deal. But underneath, people are building their entire lives on credit cards and payment plans just to eat. And here's the danger with debt. The problem isn't when you borrow. The problem is when you run out of things to cut. First, you switch to cheaper brands. Then, you skip organic. Then, you use buy now, pay later. But what happens when you max that out? When there's nothing left to cut and the payments are due, that's when things spiral. 1 missed payment means fees. 2 missed payments means calls from collectors. 3 missed payments means serious trouble. If today's groceries are paid for with tomorrow's money, what happens when tomorrow comes and you're already behind? Chicago used to be proud of its stability, working people who paid their bills on time. But when you're financing food, you're not living responsibly anymore. You're living on borrowed time. And if you think that's bad, just wait. Number 9 shows what happens when buying food doesn't just cost money, it costs your dignity. Number 9, New Orleans. When buying groceries feels like a crime. New Orleans is known for music, culture, and life on every corner. But today there's another sound in the city. Locks clicking shut. Walk into a grocery store here and you'll see meat, cheese, baby formula. Even laundry detergent, locked behind glass. Self-checkout lanes are closed. Security guards watch every move. When you have to ask permission just to buy chicken, it stops feeling like shopping. It feels like suspicion. And New Orleans is stuck in a brutal cycle. Higher prices lead to more theft leads to more security, and those costs get passed right back to shoppers, pushing prices even higher. Most people here aren't criminals. They're families trying to survive in a city where wages haven't kept up for years, but the system treats everyone like a threat. When food is locked behind glass, it's not just groceries that disappear. Trust does. And if you think that's disturbing, number 8 goes even further, where technology is turning grocery shopping into something straight out of Black Mirror. Number 8, San Francisco, the surveillance supermarket. San Francisco is packed with tech money, startups, and wealth beyond imagination. And that's exactly why it's become the testing ground for something really disturbing. In San Francisco, food prices aren't just high, they're flexible, dynamic, adjusted in real time by computers. What does that mean? Let me paint you a picture. It means the price you pay for milk might be different from the price the person standing right next to you pays, based on when you shop, where you live, what you usually buy, your shopping history, and in the near future, maybe based on who you are, your income, how desperate they think you are. Modern supermarkets in San Francisco aren't just stores anymore. They're data collection centers. Cameras everywhere tracking your movements, facial recognition scanning your face, computers learning your behavior, your habits, your weak spots. The system watches how you shop, what you buy, when you pause, when you splurge, and it adjusts prices in real time to get the maximum amount from you while keeping you just barely willing to pay. There's a phrase that captures this perfectly. You don't go shopping anymore. You get priced. And here's the scary part. It's becoming normal. People are accepting it. High prices get called convenience. Surveillance gets called personalized shopping. And people accept being tracked and analyzed as long as they don't have to wait in line. San Francisco is redefining what collapse means, not riots in the streets, but a quiet shift into a world where food is a financial product, where your personal data is currency, where computers decide what you pay for meals. Here's the truth. This isn't science fiction. This is happening right now, today, in San Francisco supermarkets. And if it works there, if people accept it, it'll spread everywhere else. Your city, your neighborhood, your local store. Think about it. If companies can charge different people different prices based on their data, why wouldn't they? It's pure profit. San Francisco is the test. And if we're not careful, the rest of America becomes the experiment. Now let me take you back, because to understand how we got here, we need to look at where this crisis started, the reality of inflation. Think about this. Just a few years ago, $100 could fill your entire cart. You'd walk out with bags full of food, real food, enough to last your family almost a week. Not ramen and frozen dinners, but actual ingredients to cook real meals. Today, that same $100 gets you maybe 3 or 4 bags, and those bags barely last 3 days if you're lucky. They keep calling this inflation. Economists use that word like it explains everything. But here's the thing. Inflation is supposed to be temporary, right? Prices go up, then they level off, maybe even come back down a bit. But what we're seeing now? This isn't normal inflation. Normal inflation doesn't put candy bars behind locked glass. Normal inflation doesn't make people pay for groceries in installments. Normal inflation doesn't force workers to choose between eating lunch or saving that money for dinner. What's happening right now is something different. Something that's breaking how society works. And here's what nobody talks about. This crisis isn't hitting every city the same way. Some places are getting crushed harder and faster. Not because people are different, not because they're lazy. It's because of location, infrastructure, economic decisions made decades ago that are coming back to haunt entire communities. Let me show you what I mean. Starting with number 7. A city that's already been through hell once. A city that knows what collapse looks like. And now, it's facing round 2. Number 7. Detroit. The city that collapsed twice. Detroit isn't just another American city with problems. Detroit is a warning written in concrete and broken dreams. This is a place that already died once, not in theory, but in real life, affecting real people who watch their world fall apart. Go back to the 70s and 80s. Detroit was the engine of America. The auto industry employed hundreds of thousands of people. Good jobs where you could work 40 hours a week and support a family, buy a house, send your kids to decent schools, retire with dignity. Then it all fell apart. Factories closed. Jobs disappeared overnight. Entire neighborhoods emptied out. Houses sat abandoned, windows broken, yards overgrown. The city went bankrupt in 2008. A major American city, unable to pay its bills. Detroit survived that, barely. The city clawed its way back, inch by inch. New businesses moved in. Downtown started showing life again. People dared to hope the worst was over. But here's the cruel twist. Just when Detroit was getting back on its feet, another punch came. This time, it's not jobs disappearing. It's food prices exploding. In just under 3 years, food costs in Detroit have jumped 25 to 30%. 1/4 to 1/3 more expensive in 3 years. You might think, okay, 30%, that's bad, but everyone's dealing with it. But you need to understand Detroit. This city was already on life support. Most families here were already stretched thin, already cutting corners, already living paycheck to paycheck with no margin for error. And here's the kicker. Large parts of Detroit are what experts call food deserts. That means entire neighborhoods where you literally can't buy fresh vegetables. No grocery stores, no farmers markets, nothing. If you want fresh food, you have to drive, sometimes 5 miles, sometimes 10. And when gas costs what it does today, that trip to the store becomes a major financial decision. Families in Detroit aren't comparing prices between 2 stores down the street. They're calculating how much gas it'll take to drive to a store that sells real food, adding that to the cost of groceries, then deciding if they can even afford to make that trip this week. A shopping cart that used to cost $100 now costs $130 or more. And that cart doesn't fill up like it used to. Same money, way less food. For people who already survived the auto industry collapse, who already made it through bankruptcy, who already tightened their belts as much as possible, this is devastating. But here's what worries me most about Detroit. It's not the numbers, it's the silence. When a community gets beaten down over and over, people stop complaining. They stop protesting. They stop asking for help because help never comes. They just quietly start skipping meals. Parents eat less, so their kids can eat more. Families stop buying meat. Breakfast becomes a luxury. Detroit rebuilt itself once through pure determination. The question is, can you rebuild when the problem isn't jobs, but simply being able to afford to eat? Because when food becomes something you have to strategize about, when feeding your family requires military-level planning, something fundamental has broken. Detroit survived losing its factories. It survived bankruptcy. But surviving the inability to buy affordable food? That's a different kind of collapse. Slower, quieter, but just as deadly. And if you think Detroit has it bad, just wait for number 6. It shows what happens when you're living on 20% less money and prices keep climbing. Number 6, St. Louis, the pressure. Cooker ready to explode. St. Louis is dangerous because it looks so normal. This isn't a city with a dramatic collapse like Detroit. It's not some isolated place. St. Louis sits right in the heartland, middle America. The kind of place that's supposed to be stable. But stability is an illusion when your paycheck can't keep up with your grocery bill. Here's the reality in St. Louis. The median income is about 20% lower than the national average. 20%. 1/5 less money. That might sound like just a number, but let me put it in real terms. It means when you're standing at checkout, looking at that total on the screen, it hurts 20% more. The same milk, the same bread, the same eggs. But the pain is worse because you're working with less money. And food prices in St. Louis have been climbing just as fast as in richer cities. The difference is, people here don't have any cushion. No savings to dip into, no emergency fund. When you're already living close to the edge, even small increases become major problems. An extra $10 on the grocery bill means something else doesn't get paid. Maybe the electric bill, maybe the phone, maybe gas to get to work. St. Louis is like a pressure cooker with a crack in the lid. You don't need much more heat. Just a little more pressure, and the whole thing explodes. And here's what makes it worse. St. Louis doesn't have any advantages to help with costs. It's not a port city where goods come in cheap. It's not a huge shipping hub. It's just there, middle of the map. And when you're in the middle, you don't get breaks. When prices go up nationally, they go up in St. Louis too. But there's no escape, no cheaper alternative. The supermarket down the street is the supermarket. Take it or leave it. And leaving it isn't an option when your family needs to eat. So what do people do? They cut back. Buy cheaper brands, skip fresh vegetables, stretch everything as far as possible. Rice and beans become the default meal. But there's only so much cutting you can do before there's nothing left. Here's the question. If you lived in a city where your income was always 20% behind everyone else's, but prices were the same, what would you sacrifice? Your food quality, your savings, your kids' activities, your health? These aren't theoretical questions in St. Louis. These are real decisions real families make every week just to survive. The city isn't collapsing in some dramatic way. It's eroding, slowly, family by family, meal by meal. Now let me show you number 5. What happens when geography itself becomes your enemy? When every item in your cart has traveled thousands of miles to reach you. Number 5. Anchorage, where distance costs a fortune. Anchorage is beautiful, but beauty doesn't pay the grocery bill. A gallon of milk here costs $12 to $13. Eggs can hit $10 or more. Gas, $8 a gallon. Nearly 90% of everything sold in Anchorage arrives by air or ship. Every apple, every loaf of bread, every bag of rice carries a transportation bill. So when prices rise nationwide, Anchorage feels it harder. A 20% increase elsewhere might mean $1 extra. Here, it means 3 or more. Alaskans are tough. They expect higher costs. But today's prices go far beyond the normal Alaska premium. There's a saying here, inflation doesn't arrive by truck. It flies first class. When gas costs $8, you're not just paying to drive. You're paying for the fuel that brought your food to the store. In most of America, inflation creeps in slowly. In Anchorage, it hits like an Arctic wind, sudden and unavoidable. And people start asking questions no one should have to ask about food. Can we afford to stay? Do we have to leave? At least in Anchorage, everyone pays the same prices. Number 4 shows what happens when the very industry powering your city is the one pricing you out. Number 4, Honolulu, paradise with a price tag. Honolulu looks like a dream in every photo. Crystal blue water, white, sand beaches, palm trees, paradise. But for people who actually live there, paradise comes with a bill that never stops growing. Here's the math. Between 85 and 90% of all food in Honolulu has to be imported, shipped across thousands of miles of ocean. Every egg, every gallon of milk, every head of lettuce. Nothing grows locally in quantities large enough to feed a city, so everything comes from somewhere else. But import costs are just the beginning. The real issue is tourism. Millions of people visit Hawaii every year with vacation budgets. They're relaxed, happy, ready to spend money without thinking about prices. And the entire economy has adjusted to serve them, not the locals. Hotels charge vacation prices. Restaurants charge vacation prices. And grocery stores started charging vacation prices too. Here's the irony. If you're a local resident, you're competing for every loaf of bread with an industry designed to extract maximum money from tourists who don't care about prices. Rent goes up because of Airbnb. Every apartment that becomes an Airbnb is one less place for a local family. Food prices go up because tourists pay premium costs without blinking. But your salary? Your salary stays local. You're working a local job, earning local wages, but paying tourist prices for everything. That's not normal inflation. That's a double squeeze. There's a phrase people in Honolulu use. Honolulu is paradise, but not if you're shopping on a local salary. Imagine working full-time, maybe 2 jobs, and still having to calculate if you can afford fresh vegetables this week. Imagine watching tourists casually buy carts full of food without looking at prices while you're doing math in your head over milk. People in Honolulu are used to high prices. They've accepted it for years. But everyone has a limit. When food starts competing with your rent, your car payment, your utilities, something gives. And what gives? People leave. Young families pack up and move to the mainland where life is affordable. Teachers leave. Nurses leave. The community drains away. Society doesn't collapse in riots. It collapses through quiet goodbyes, through moving vans, through one-way tickets to somewhere that doesn't charge vacation prices just to live. How long can a city survive when it values tourists more than the people who live there? But if paradise with impossible prices sounds tough, number 3 shows what's happening in one of America's biggest cities, where the divide between rich and poor has become so extreme, they might as well be living in different countries. Number 3, Los Angeles. The city split in 2. Los Angeles isn't starving. Los Angeles is fracturing. Walk through certain neighborhoods and you'll see Whole Foods packed with shoppers, organic everything, $8 juices, coffee that costs more than some people spend on lunch. Drive 10 minutes in any direction and you'll find neighborhoods where food security is a daily battle, where instant noodles are dinner most nights because that's what people can afford, where the dollar store is the main grocery option. This isn't complexity. This is inequality stretched to the breaking point. When food prices rise, Los Angeles doesn't share the burden. It splits apart. The gap widens. The wealthy change brands. Buy the slightly less expensive organic option. No real impact on their lives. The poor skip meals. Trade breakfast for lunch. Cut out meat. Struggle to stretch $5 into dinner for 3 people. You can drive down streets where luxury cars are parked in front of million-dollar homes. Restaurants packed. Instagram influencers filming grocery hauls. Then you turn one corner, and suddenly you're in a different reality, where supermarkets are rare, where fresh produce is a luxury, where fast food is cheaper than cooking. Los Angeles isn't hungry in the traditional sense. It's hungry for balance. For some sense that we're all living in the same city, playing by the same rules. But that balance doesn't exist. And as the gap grows wider, the city isn't collapsing into chaos. It's collapsing into separation. Communities live blocks apart, but no longer share the same reality. They don't face the same struggles. They don't even shop at the same stores. How long can a city survive when on the same block one person is buying a $20 salad while their neighbor is trying to figure out if they can afford pasta? When inequality becomes that visible, it doesn't just hurt economically, it hurts socially. It creates resentment, division, and us versus them mentality that's toxic. Los Angeles is beautiful and broken at the same time. And food prices are making that break wider every day. And if you think LA represents extreme inequality, number 2 proves even the wealthiest places can't escape this crisis. Number 2, New York City, where prices never go back down. New Yorkers are used to expensive. Rent is insane. Coffee is expensive. Everything costs more in New York. That's just how it is. But something changed in the past few years. A line got crossed. Let me give you an example. Coffee beans. A regular bag people bought for years. $9.99? Under $10. Reasonable. In less than a year, that same bag jumped to $17.99. Almost double. Not gradual. Nearly double. In 1 year. But the price isn't even the worst part. The worst part is what companies are doing to hide increases. They're shrinking packages, making them smaller, then redesigning the packaging so it looks nicer, fancier. New logo, smaller amount, higher price. This is called shrinkflation. And in New York, it's everywhere. It's like a pickpocket in an expensive suit. It doesn't grab your wallet. It just takes a little bit every day, so smoothly you barely notice until you realize how much is gone. The frustrating thing about New York isn't lack of money. The city has plenty. What it lacks is price correction. In New York, prices never come back down. Never. When inflation supposedly ends, prices don't drop. They just stay where they are. Maybe they stop climbing, but they never return to where they were. For people making good money, this is annoying, but manageable. For people on fixed salaries, for hourly workers, for anyone living paycheck to paycheck, it's exhausting. Nobody's rioting. New Yorkers just adjust. Quietly, constantly. They change restaurants, change shopping habits, change what they eat, change their entire lifestyle around the fact that everything keeps getting more expensive and nothing ever gets cheaper. There's a saying for New York: inflation never leaves, it just changes its outfit. How long can even the wealthiest city endure when prices only move in one direction, when salaries stay flat while everything else climbs? New York can handle it for now because it has money. But number one doesn't have that advantage. And what's happening there is about survival in the most literal sense. Number one, Phoenix, when the desert fights back. Phoenix is one of the fastest growing cities in America. Houses going up constantly, shopping centers being built, highways expanding, everything growing. The whole city is built on one assumption nobody questioned: water will always be there. But that assumption is dying. Phoenix exists in one of the driest regions in America. It survives on water that's shared across states, carefully managed, and becoming scarcer every year. And as water becomes scarce, everything connected to food falls apart. Follow the chain. Water gets expensive. That makes farming expensive. Expensive farming makes shipping expensive. Expensive shipping makes food prices soar. In Phoenix, prices aren't rising because the city is remote. They're rising because the climate itself is demanding payment for decades of ignoring reality. Every heat wave means higher electricity bills because air conditioning runs nonstop. Higher food storage costs. Higher prices for fruits and vegetables because they need water that's increasingly expensive and scarce. Phoenix is a city built on borrowed water. When everything was cheap and water seemed endless, nobody asked hard questions. But now that prices are climbing, people are realizing they're living in a system where basic costs depend on factors completely out of their control. And here's the scary part: Phoenix is still growing. More people moving in every day, more demand, more pressure on water, electricity, and food. But wages? Wages aren't rising to match. How long can a city thrive when its future depends on a resource that's running out? Because when water becomes unreliable, food prices stop being just an economic issue. They become a survival issue. You can't build a sustainable city in the desert if water costs make food unaffordable. You can't keep growing if the very land you're building on is fighting against you. Phoenix is a warning about what happens when we ignore limits, when we build cities in places that can't naturally support them, then act shocked when nature pushes back. The question we need to ask 10 cities, 10 different stories, 10 different reasons why food prices are pushing communities to the breaking point. Chicago financing groceries like car payments, New Orleans locking food behind glass, San Francisco turning shopping into surveillance, Detroit facing collapse for the second time, St. Louis on the edge with lower wages, Anchorage paying double for everything, Honolulu pricing out its own people, Los Angeles splitting in two, New York where prices never drop, Phoenix betting against nature. But they all lead to the same conclusion. When food costs more than people can afford, when the most basic necessity becomes a luxury, society starts to crack. Not loudly, not dramatically, but quietly, steadily, and very real. Not every city will collapse. Not every family will fall apart. But history teaches us one lesson. The weakest foundations always crack first. This isn't about creating fear. This is about asking questions that need answers before it's too late. Is your city following one of these paths? Have you noticed the signs? Are grocery bills hitting different now than 2 years ago? Are you adapting to this reality, or just enduring it, just surviving day by day? This conversation is just beginning. These 10 cities are warnings. They're showing us what happens when food prices outpace people's ability to pay. And if we don't start having honest conversations, if we don't demand real solutions, more cities will follow. Your city might be next. Leave a comment. Tell me what you're seeing where you live. Tell me if your city is showing similar signs. Tell me what you think happens next. We don't have to agree on everything, but we have to keep talking about this. If this video made you think, if it opened your eyes to something real that the media isn't covering, subscribe to this channel, turn on notifications, because we're going to keep analyzing what's really happening in America's economy, society, and future. No sugarcoating, just real analysis. This isn't financial advice. This isn't propaganda. This is social analysis. These are observations about the world we're living in right now, based on real data and real people. The goal isn't to tell you what to think. The goal is to give you information so you can think for yourself, so you can make informed decisions about your life. Thank you for watching until the end. Thank you for caring enough about these issues to spend time learning instead of scrolling past. Stay aware, stay informed, and most importantly, stay human.